welcome, genties and ladlemen. It is, in fact, your boy, Sir Edward, and welcome back to episode 9 of Cracking the Shell. This is where we go behind all the blast beats and the monster noises and all that cool stuff with all the cool guys and gals and non binary pals of the Glasgow and wider Scottish metal scene. On this episode, we have Callum from Tyrannus. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of cool stuff. It's going to be great. Callum, how are you doing?
I'm very good, John. Thank you very much for having me on. Yeah, it's been really cool seeing you put these together with like a bunch of the lads like from all around the scene. So I'm very happy to be still part of like the early batch. I don't know how far this could end up going. So yeah, I'm happy to be like on the first round, we'll say.
Yeah, for first round, I thought about, because we're approaching 10 episodes. I don't know how far it's going to go after that, but it's been a lot of fun. Everybody's been really cool to have on, and it's been really good. So, before we talk about everything that you're doing now and everything that Tyrannus has coming up in the future, I'd like to rewind the clock a little bit and find out, I suppose, your origin story of how you fell into this absolute chaotic mess of music, metal, scene, everything. The Callum Cant origin story.
Oh, Jesus. Are we talking about like how I got into playing music or metal? Like, what's the like what route are we want to take with this one?
I suppose just music in general, you're growing up and obviously you can't control what's being played around the house. How did you get from that to finding metal, your first bands? How did you end up, I suppose, entering the scene in metal as a whole?
Cool, right. That's a decent direction there. So, I believe you and I are relatively close in age. So you will probably remember a time when you would get a video game, probably from someone else. And if it was Grand Theft Auto, Need for Speed, or Tony Hawk's, it would have had a banging soundtrack on it,
Oh,
and
yes.
it probably completely shaped your childhood and music taste from there on. So for me, San Andreas was probably the most pertinent one, which had stuff like Guns N' Roses, Alice in Chains, and like other heavy stuff like Helmet and that and that alongside with the punk that was on Tony Hawk's or some of like the I guess like it was more like new metal that was on Need for Speed, but that all kind of congealed. And then at one point, I got given an MP3 player for my Christmas that had stuff like Slipknot, Linkin Park, Guns N' Roses again, and from there, the pipeline then extends into like the imagery that you're seeing on like Kerrang and Scuzz, and then you end up buying Kerrang magazine, and then that maybe morphs into Metal Hammer, and before you know it, you've decided to grow your hair like down to your arse. You wear nothing but black, and your mum's maybe a wee bit concerned, but overall, she's glad that you have some sort of outlet for all the teenage angst that she's predicting that you were going to go through anyway. You're not getting into drugs. You're not getting into alcohol that she knows of. And yeah, it's all it's there's like you can lay it out, and I guessing anyone that's like similar in age to me, like a millennial, is probably like I'm hitting all these nostalgia points, and they're probably, oh yeah, that was like I had that too. So so that's kind of like how the music taste started. And for me, it was always about trying to find something that was faster and heavier. So like the first song I remember getting really taken aback by was like Paradise City by Guns N' Roses, which has got a really great it's got a great sort of momentum build like as you start getting, especially that second half that starts off with the solo and then and then so you start chasing that kind of feeling, which leads you to Slipknot, it then leads you to Metallica's Master of Puppets, it then leads you to Slayer's Rain and Blood, and eventually you find yourself listening to like Limb from Limb by Exhumed and wondering how the hell did I get here?
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's so musically that's kind of like it was always just about kind of chasing that sort of like heavy extreme, but that had that fast feel. Like I like fast feeling music still, hence why I write it. Um, and in terms of like becoming a musician, I started playing bass with Craig from Party Cannon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the guitar player. He was like he was a he's always been an amazing guitar player. And him and my pal Neil, who's a fantastic drummer, we were in school together in the same music class. But like they were already amazing at their instruments, and I just wanted to be part of that, so I took up playing bass. Then that leads you to forming a band in school, which falls apart, and then but you still got the hunger for it, so you then join other people's bands after school. You then maybe record a couple of EPs that doesn't go anywhere, but you've done enough experiences where you start getting into the whole gambler's fallacy or sunk cost fallacy, where it's like, okay, well, I've done this much, so that didn't work out, but if I do it like this, then it'll be okay. So then you get for me, it was I got 10 years into playing in other people's bands as a bass player before realizing I want to play guitar and I want to write my own music and I want to do my own thing and I don't want to have anyone like having a say over what I'm trying to do that might cause it to fuck up. So that's how Tyrannus got started. Was me just being like, right, I'm 28. I've not done enough with music, even though I've been doing it for 10 years. So I now need to make this happen for myself.
Yeah, pretty much when it comes to the whole musical evolution, you hit every point that I went through. I'm a little bit younger. I'm 27 now,
Hmm.
so I still remember all of the like the Kerrang and stuff. I still went through that same kind of thing. It's weird how for everybody that's our age, Linkin Park always shows up in one form or another.
Yep.
Like
Um.
for me, it was I think it was the second Transformers movie, the one that had New Divide in it, and
Yeah.
that was that thing that got me hooked.
Yeah.
And then after that, I found Breaking Benjamin, and then I found Korn, and then Disturbed when they were good. Um, and it just spiraled from there. I had a guy in high school show me like Iron Maiden and Megadeth and Rush, and I
Hmm.
don't remember when death metal came into it. I genuinely don't remember, but definitely as I went through high school, I found like Slipknot, and then everything just started getting heavier, faster. Though weirdly enough, I didn't seek stuff that was faster. I ended up kind of locking into stuff that was a lot more kind of mid down tempo and very groovy. So
Hmm.
Obituary, fine example, probably up there in my top death metal bands of all time. Just that slow, chuggy caveman stuff, just it tickles my brain in a way that the fast stuff, while I still love it, just doesn't have that same effect, you know.
I and that's what I like about music in general is that everyone listens to music for different reasons and is looking for something different. Um, the best way I can describe it is for me, my music taste has to fit the mode of being in a fast car. Now, sometimes the mood of that fast car is different. Sometimes it's Mad Max, and other times it's um, Fast and Furious. Or, so sometimes you want to feel like you're in Tokyo Drift. Sometimes you want to feel like you're in the wasteland. But it needs to have that momentum, and
Mhm.
sometimes it doesn't even mean about being fast. Just about having those enough transitions where it feels like the song's like making it's got a pace like there's a reason for me to keep paying attention, sort of thing.
Mhm. Yeah, I can definitely see that. When it comes to a lot of fast stuff, kind of grew out of Metallica and all the old thrash bands very quickly. And then I found stuff like Napalm Death, Cannibal Corpse, where that was faster, but it had a lot more moments of groove in it. So it kind of struck the balance of both of those worlds, where it was still interesting enough while still keeping that intensity.
See, that I'm going the opposite way then, but ended up in the same position as you because like one of the best death metal songs ever, in my opinion, is "Death Walking Terror" by Cannibal Corpse from the Kill album. That's just
Mhm.
like that to me is like they're not my favorite death metal band by any means, but I love the again it's that sort of feeling of momentum and progression where you're starting off with a really down tuned, heavy as hell riff, and then it starts speeding up. It gets a little bit technical at the towards the end. It then bursts into like a sort of slow Slayer type of solo, and then resolves really well. And that to me is like like if there's such a thing as like a vanilla flavor of death metal, that is it. But that is vanilla perfected.
Mhm. There's a lot of bands that do that vanilla flavor, but there's only a small few that make it just so good. So good.
Aye.
And Cannibal is
Uh,
definitely up there, and that's why they've been around for 40 years and
yeah.
are still doing the same thing. And it's weird how you get, I mean, metalheads are never happy. Let's be real here. If a
No,
band keeps doing the same thing, it's like, oh, why don't they change? And then if a band does something different, it's like, well, I like the old stuff. Yeah. It's like, God, you can't please anybody. Metalheads are terrible.
it's well, I think it's because a lot of this type of art, especially because I see it in like films and various fandoms as well, is where
Mm,
like a lot of it is about projecting yourself upon that art. So, like, and I find this with especially bands that have got big personalities in them. So, like Corpse Grinder in Cannibal Corpse, or you were doing an impression of him there, Dave Mustaine in Megadeth. Like we're watching and probably the one who gets it the worst and the tightest actually is Metallica because they've not been able to satisfy their fan base in over 30 years. Like they've not been able to satisfy their fan base since before I was alive.
yeah,
Um, and it's because people are projecting like their expectations onto the band and I don't, that's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's just a thing. I think we're all wanting to hear, like we're all wanting to have some control over a world that we don't have control over. So when I don't know if you're maybe consciously or subconsciously you're feeling like you've got no control over what happens at your job, you've got no control over something that's happening with your family, you've got no control over the congestion of the drive as you're going to work, that sort of shit. So you're trying to exert control over something, someone, and so when Metallica release another dog shit album, you listen to it and be like, well, they should have done this. They should have cut this song. They should have brought this back down to 4 minutes. They shouldn't have played that solo. They should have put a solo at the start of this. That kind of thing. And I think that's okay because eventually, if you're really determined, you'll do something really stupid like I did, like form a band and make
yeah,
your own music and
yeah,
subject
exactly.
yourself to the same critique by other people.
And then one of two things will happen. You will either become Dave Mustaine, or you will kind of go, you know what? I can kind of see why Metallica does it. And you have that, like, the penny drop moment, and then you never do it again, which is something that never happens. Everybody just becomes Dave Mustaine, minus the whole, like, God-fearing thing, which I don't know what that's about. And at least, and NFT thing, like,
And
why?
telling African women to put a plug in it.
Oh, God, he did
That's
that?
honestly one of the worst things I've ever heard a musician say. Like that, like people forget he said that, but if you just look up Dave Mustaine, African women, it's like in Rolling Stone or something. It was publicized very heavily, and everyone just kind of like, well, it's Megadeth, so like
True.
they, it's like what does like Dave Mustaine is the '80s equivalent of Corey Taylor. It's like, oh, what does Dave Mustaine think of this? What has Dave said? And everyone stopped fucking listening unless it's got Metallica in it, because then it's like, whoa, T. We it's 40-year-old T, and we're still up for it.
Yeah,
But
the tea's rancid, it's got mold in it, it stinks, and
yeah,
people keep fucking drinking it, and
and
I
yet
think it's
people still manage to
hilarious.
make a career out of it.
It really is. It's like you've seen all those memes of like Metallica versus Megadeth, and then you've got Slayer fans just yelling Slayer while carving the logo into the forearm. Meanwhile, Anthrax is just like
We'll
that
open the
John
show, guys.
Travolta gif where it's just I feel
We'll still
terrible for
open the
them.
show, dudes. It's okay. We'll still make sure that the crowd's warmed up. Anthrax, everyone's favorite opener band.
Pretty much, and I feel terrible because I like a lot of Anthrax stuff. But in terms of, I suppose, thrash, I am leaning more towards a lot of the modern bands. I mean, Gamma Bomb, Municipal Waste, fine examples. Even if Municipal Waste do get a bit cheesy after a while, it's
I bet they're absolutely rolling it right now with that Trump shirt though.
oh, absolutely. I love that Trump shirt so much. There are very few pieces of merchandise that you could reprint until the end of time.
They
It's
did
the
it.
obituary
Well
cause of
done to
the
them.
obituary, like first two album shirts, that cause of death, that Trump artwork shirt, sorry. Those are things that I think are just going to be timeless. I mean,
That
obituary's still printing that shit to this
I
day.
I think that the Trump shirt is going to be like this generation's like Ramones shirt or like this generation's like Snaggletooth shirt.
Yeah.
You're never going to see that like not printed. It's just going to be there forever. And well done to them.
Yeah,
Um,
they nailed it. I mean, I'm gonna be seeing that shit in like H&M or something, or like Matalan, or even in like Asda. I'll go into Asda and I'll see a Municipal Waste t-shirt.
once it's in HMV and once it's in ASDA, that's when you know it's like it's become something much more. I mean, like there are already people that will be wearing that, not because it's a municipal waste shirt, but it's because it's like a political statement or anything like that.
Yeah. And as much as I don't really delve into politics and stuff, it's
And yet you have me on your podcast. That's quite funny.
yeah, I know the irony, but we do tend to we try to keep this like kind of light-hearted and informal, and just the idea that I had from the beginning was imagine being a fly in the wall of just a bunch of guys shooting the shit. Because you get all these serious interview outfits like Metal Injection and fucking Loudwire and shit. It's like if you want that kind of thing, go to them. If you want the clickbait and oh, you'll never believe what Callum from Tyrannus said. It's like, go to Metal Injection, go to Loudwire. You're not going to get that shit here.
I mean, that's kind of the thing with those types of outlets is that they're just there to promote the band or the current album or whatever. Like you will, if you watch like again, he's the most prevalent one, so we'll use Mustaine as an answer. But if you watch like five Dave Mustaine interviews around one album cycle, he scripts himself. He's got an answer for that he's already rehearsed like for each question, and he knows roughly what he's going to get asked, and then that's it. So, but then he likes talking about himself a lot as well. Not that I don't, but he really likes talking about himself. So,
Yeah, there's a limit with how much you can wank yourself off, and Dave Mustaine and David Draymond from Disturbed are the worst for it.
fucking despise David Draymond, one of the worst
Yeah,
fucking people in metal. One of the most fucked up and evil pieces of shit in metal. And people don't realize this, but he is.
no, no, it's definitely getting a lot harder to separate the art from the artist with like the shit that he's been posting.
Particularly when they're signing, bombs that are
Yeah,
going into like hospitals. So
mm, yeah. Let's I try to forget
sorry,
that.
I tried not to bring politics into your
You have
podcast,
to
bro. I can't help it.
no, it's fine. Don't worry about it because it's something that I agree with. We are very similar politically. I'm very left-leaning and which oh no, I'm going to get cancelled now from like the one guy that's right-wing that listens to this.
Watch
Oh no.
the Afsky and Atlas fans are going to be coming after you now.
I can already hear Destroyer 666 knocking on my door.
I know, Jesus. The fact that that show went ahead as well. Not to be putting people on blast on your podcast, bro, but Ivory Blacks, go fuck yourselves.
Oh, here it goes. Next thing you know, gonna get a message from Ivory Black, just like, yeah, you're not allowed in. And I'm like, shit.
I've not been in your building for over 10 years, mate, and it's a streak akin to Goldberg's that I'm planning on continuing.
Oh, this is good. This is we should have made this episode 10 like the Big 10 special where we just put everyone in
No, no,
blast.
no.
We should have.
I'm like the I'm like the sleeper spicy episode for you, man. Like people are gonna be like, oh, let's go troll through, and in 5 years' time or whatever, like once you're like onto episode like 300, they'll be doing like a highlights list, and they're like, what the fuck did that guy say? So,
I need to actually get good at making thumbnails. I did have an attempt when I had Liam on the podcast a few weeks ago, and I completely fucked it because I used Microsoft Paint because I'm crap at Photoshop. But the idea I've had for like having a thumbnail, if I ever manage to make it, is like there's a hammer and then there's like a picture of the guest. The hammer's hitting the guest in the head, and then instead of a blood splat, it's an egg because I'm very inventive and creative because cracking the shell, my YouTube name Sir Eggward,
yeah, yeah.
very, very high tier, very
Just go
highbrow
all in on
comedy.
the egg imagery. Even try and get yourself like a local farm sponsorship.
This podcast is sponsored by Diddley Squat. No, it's not.
This podcast is sponsored by John McTaggart's Egg Farm, just off of the M8 past Cumbernauld. Go and get your eggs from
Use
John
code
McTaggart.
Baldy for 10% off your order.
Use the code chicken for 0% off your order.
That's the thing. When I was setting up the interview with David Easton, which was the second episode, the amount of jokes that we made about like being sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends and Ridge Wallet and all these sponsorships that you see on YouTube everywhere. It doesn't matter what channel you're watching, it's always Raid Shadow Legends, Ridge Wallet, or some kind of food delivery service. It's weird.
The thing with that though is that like you can skip those. The thing I've got the
True.
massive bee in my bonnet about is those fake games now, which are now getting self-aware. So like stuff like Total War, I think it's called, or Ebony,
Mm.
where it looks like it would actually be an alright game to piss about with for like a half hour, but the gameplay is absolutely nothing like that. You can look up the actual games on YouTube and find out, oh right, this is basically a scam, or like they're not, or what they're selling you is like it's not really there. It's like maybe a mini game inside of a really boring game. But
Yeah.
but now they get the ads are getting self-aware, so they'll have people pretending to like pretending to play it. There was actually one guy who took the piss by he took his phone case. He just took a phone case and pretended to be playing it whilst the gameplay footage was like up here. And then and now they started doing the oh, I heard that game's fake. No, it's not fake.
Oh
I'm the
God, that shit
100th
makes me want to die.
top 100 gamer of this game, and you should play it. And now they managed to and because they know they've only got 5 seconds on the YouTube ads to like actually do anything with it, then they are trying their best to still like get people onto these subscriptions on Google Play.
It's so dumb, and it's not even just mobile games that are doing this, it's actual like AAA console games. Like there was the whole thing with Escape from Tarkov where you finally get the PvE mode, the offline PvE mode. It's part of
Oh
a DLC. DLC's $250. You and three friends want to play it? He's a grand bro.
yeah. Or there's a current issue with Apex Legends splitting their battle pass. So now you're essentially having to pay double for half as much of content. It's just because it's probably because like they're into like 21st season now and they're going to be wrapping it up because like that there's probably not a lot of cash left in it. And then on top of that, their servers got hacked during a tournament this year, so
Well,
it's obviously like curtains for that. But it is just really bloody sad that out of everything like and you can see this bullshit subscription service crap everywhere and it's just like nobody's like really selling like anything that's like really I guess fulfilling to own now, which I
mhm.
think is probably why and this is my attempt to veer the conversation back to music. This is probably why people are once again being a lot more invested in like the music scenes that they're in and like buying vinyl and cassettes, even though most of us don't have vinyl players or cassette players because we're just wanting to have something that's like
Physical, yeah.
I pay my tenner a month. I pay a tenner a month to Tidal, and so should everyone else. Fuck Spotify, but whatever your music subscription service is, you're paying a tenner for that, and then you don't really have anything for it other than like whatever you listen to. So then to have that, and then you go ahead and buy one of these, that's because you've then got something like in your hand. You can look at it. You can whatever. Do you like
Yeah.
how I plugged our cassette there, by the way?
Yeah, plug all you want. Well, it's going to be a giant plug fest at the end of this once we talk about like what Tyrannus is going to be doing next and all that.
But I've been a long like fan of podcasts like since I was like a teenager, and
Mm.
I've always found that if you stick all your marketing right in right in the middle or right at the end, people are not going to care. But if you make it part of your if your spiel or part of a conversation, that's a lot more
Mm.
effective.
Yeah,
Which you can
well,
buy from
there you go.
bandcamp.com.
Bandcamp. I can't speak today. What the fuck? Bandcamp.com/ Tyrannus.
Oh
Get your
no, it's actually
cassettes.
Tyrannus
Get.
Tyrannus.bandcamp.com.
Oh, sorry, got the link wrong. Can't do that. I'm going to get cancelled now. Tyrannus.bandcamp.com. Buy your cassettes, buy t-shirts, buy patches. They make your penis three times bigger. Spoiler alert, they might not actually make your penis bigger.
They say none of this is actually authenticated by either the NHS or the FDA. So please don't ascribe that to us. You will feel rather nice about yourself. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a nice feel good thing. Because I mean, I'll admit, as much as I use streaming services just again because it's convenient, I do have just to my left, I have a stack of vinyl, mainly like old records and stuff like that. But what I really collect is you can see like this is a cupboard next to me, and it is bursting with t-shirts, and that's something I love as merchandise, whether it's t-shirts,
What's
hoodies, hats, kind of thing.
what's the oldest T-shirt you've got?
Oh fuck. I think and I know I hate to cycle to Disturbed again, but it's an old Disturbed shirt. It's buried because just behind me as well as my bed, and it's one of those ones that you can lift up and you can store stuff underneath. So the
Yeah,
t-shirts
yeah.
that I don't really wear all that often are stuff there, and I think there's a Disturbed shirt in there.
There's
That's my oldest one from like I think 2014 or 15. But yeah,
so that I find impressive because I don't know about you, but I've moved a lot of houses like since I was 22. So I think I've moved house like 8 times, maybe
wow.
8 times. And you always lose shit. So the
Mm,
things that I've probably regretted losing the most was so obviously I'm a wee bit older than you. I don't
mhm.
know if this was maybe still a thing when you were first coming up in the scene, but I I really enjoyed collecting like the tiny little discs that people would give you. Like they'd normally be in like paper wallets or like plastic little wallets with like band's name in Sharpie, and it was just a burn CD, and sometimes it would be like free bands on one or whatever, and then that's how you'd you'd find out about bands, or you'd like, if they got given out like a festival or something or a gig, or you watched them and then they were giving that out at the end of the set, whatever. Like I really liked my wee stack of like psychoanalysis, cancerous womb. I even had a couple of the first Party Cannon CDs, which I probably at some point will be worth on to someone, but they've all gone. They're all gone. So that's the only thing I probably um, missed out on. Is I know obviously I had plenty of T-shirts as well, but they either get destroyed in the wash, or you
You
decide at age
outgrow
20.
them and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, you outgrow them. It's yeah, it's so the fact you've managed to keep that is very impressive. Well done.
Yeah, I regret that it's a Disturbed shirt, but that's besides the point. But
Yeah,
generally, for the most part, because I like my t-shirts to be like quite baggy and like so I can breathe a wee bit, I usually get an XL, which is the
aye.
size that everybody runs out of stupid quickly. So it's like either a large or an XXL or a triple XL. So usually in that case, I go for a large, but all my t-shirts for the most part are extra large.
See,
Um,
it's funny you say that because we did a run of long sleeves with Seizure for that tour that we did in February.
mm,
It was the XLs that we were left with.
wow.
Yeah, but to be fair, like they did put in an order for like double the amount of XL t-shirts that like I would have I would have
Yeah.
expected to put in. Like for us, it's normally mediums and larges that go first, and then you're usually left with XLs and smalls
Yeah,
until like the very
nobody in
end.
this country fits in a small, let's be real here. So they're just gonna sit
Um,
there for a bit.
no, there was actually I had a. It was funny when we played Birmingham. I had like a fierce debate with one of the support bands because the frontman's cousin was only maybe like 16 or 17. Was wanting to buy a long sleeve, and he was asking for a small, and the guy was like, "Give him a fucking medium. He's gonna outgrow it." And I just said to the kids like, "What one do you actually want?" And he said the small. So I was like, so I just said to the guy, "Yeah, just take the small, and then if he outgrows it, cut the sleeves off."
Yeah. I mean, you if you're a metalhead, you've done that with at least a third of your shirts anyway.
Yeah, like and you know what? There's actually like especially like for a wee skinny kid like that, he's gonna eventually like he's gonna get to his early 20s. He's gonna start hitting the gym, and part of a source of pride for him will be outgrowing a shirt like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I'm
And then he
definitely
gives it to his girlfriend. There's a whole story that goes with that long sleeve now.
yeah, if the girlfriend doesn't steal it first, it's like, oh, it's our hoodie now.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's just one of the things that I think is kind of trippy to think about is that when you're playing in a band, and you will probably have this yourself with your podcasts, like what stories are you feeding into? Like, are you like is someone wearing your t-shirt but like when they're going out on their first date with someone? Are like do you happen to be on the playlist on the drive home from a job interview? Like you don't know this. All you see like me as a musician, I get to see the analytics from like Spotify and Bandcamp, but you don't know where exactly like because I was thinking about this like on the walk home today was that like I'm listening to I got five on it, banging song released 30 years ago, um written by guys who were just talking about having a good time at home with their mates, and 30 years later it's getting played in a country like 10,000 miles away by a guy, by a weird white guy like going home for seeing his mates. Like that to me is a really cool, very trippy thing that like if you think about too much, you'll go insane. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree there. There's everybody, especially, well, it doesn't really matter what you're doing in this day and age. It's always something about numbers, figures, statistics, that
yeah,
kind of thing. But then there's all the stuff that you can't physically see and
hmm,
feel and all that. Where, again, like you were talking about, how this, like any form of media, whether it's an art, a video game, a podcast, music, that could change someone's life completely, whether it's like on a walk home or if they've had a really bad day and they're thinking about doing something, drastic, then they hear that song or they listen to that thing that they may have listened to thousands of times, but when they listen to it that one time, it's enough to insanely course correct them. It's
yeah.
mind blowing.
No, it's like we. I think one of the things I try to be aware because I don't really like the whole like the NPC meme. I'm not into that at all because as far as I'm concerned, like everyone is the main character of their own story,
Mhm.
and there's about 7 or 8 billion of us on this planet. So it's kind of like I try to keep that perspective when I'm dealing with people. Like if I'm hanging out with someone, I'm taking time out their day. So I guess like I'm not conscious about that all the time, but it's something that I do try to sort of maintain a perspective of. Is that like we've decided to hang out, like you and I right now we've decided to hang out just based on like because we know each other from the scene, we've talked to each other on Instagram, that
Mhm.
kind of thing, and that's cool. Like when you start boiling things down into those tiny little parts, that's fucking amazing. Like that's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, and it's really cool being in, as much as modern life is terrible and technology is terrible sometimes, it's given us the ability to do stuff like this. Whereas if this was happening 30, 40 years ago, I would have needed to like actually be in the area that you live or know your phone number or write a letter or something like that. And it would have taken weeks to do anything, let alone hear a reply. And it's kind of mad that technology has accelerated to a point where I can literally just reach out to somebody and say, "Hey,
Yeah.
you want to do this?" You know?
There's no way in hell that a band like Tyrannus could have gotten like anywhere like in the 80s. There's no way. In fact, most bands in Scotland, like there's a reason that like there was no prolific like extreme metal from Scotland until Corpse. Okay, and even then they didn't really make it anywhere. It's just that they happened to be the first death metal band from Scotland, and they played with Bolt Thrower a handful of times. Um, like it wasn't until Man Must Die started coming out in the early 2000s that like there was a possibility for a death metal band from Scotland to do anything. And then of course Cerebral Bore blew the doors open even further by getting a vocalist who was prolific on YouTube. Like that like that is normal now. It's normal for people to look for band members online. Back then, that was mental. It's like y'all have already gone through all the vocalists available in the Scottish scene, and now you're getting this wee Dutch girl who sounds like an absolute monster to like travel from Netherlands over here.
Yeah, it's kind of insane, especially given that there's so many ways to do it now. There's so many forms of social media, so many ways to get in touch with people. Whereas for the most part, everything was done through like you very primitive YouTube, which is nowhere near what it is now, and like email and all that kind of thing. And when you had stuff like MySpace, which God, MySpace, I mean, it gave us some great music, especially because I've mentioned it in the podcast before, but my start of getting into extreme metal was working my way backwards from deathcore, which is what a lot of MySpace contributed to extreme metal, which a lot of
Definitely
it's
wouldn't
good, a
exist
lot of it's
without MySpace.
horrible, but everybody has their own opinions in it. It has a soft spot for me as much as very few bands excite me nowadays. I mean, you're seeing like Lorna Shore, Slaughter to Prevail, all that shit going viral on TikTok, which don't get me wrong, especially Lorna Shore, they deserve because they've been plugging away for over a decade and have went through so many lineup changes and piece of shit ex-vocalist, and now they're just riding that fucking train and they probably have no idea what they're doing and they're just fucking praying it doesn't go away.
See,
But
like
yeah.
stuff like that just makes me feel old because it's like
Yeah.
I know the names, Lorna Shore, Slaughter to Prevail. What's that one with the mask? There's like whatever. I feel old talking
Same.
about that. It's like it's just it's pop music with 8 string guitars, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but it just doesn't appeal to me in the slightest. But obviously the kids on TikTok are loving it. So they're obviously doing something right. Um, but at the same time, I'm getting really excited about wee bands from here or from Germany, the US. Um, like one of my favorite bands right now is a band called Jesus Wept. They're from Texas. They're
Oh, I
basically
love them. They're so good.
they're like a continuation. They're like if Carcass put passion into Swan Song and
Yeah,
went further with it. Like that to me, like they're amazing, and they've only got like a couple of thousand people like listening to them, but I'm one of them, and I'm looking forward to that. Harriet have blown up now. They signed to Century Media, but I got to see them at the garage attic before just before that all kicked off. And so now I've got a band that I can say that's gone huge that I got to see before they did. Um, I was I was there at the very first Hellripper show. So like that's so then I stopped feeling old and then I kind of start feeling more like an alien. It's like yeah, that's cool and all, but like y'all don't know how great Andraka's latest album is and you should be checking that out instead.
it's
Or
brilliant.
it is brilliant. Or Vitriol started off as a band that were let's say being controversial for some of the wrong reasons.
Yeah,
But again, worked hard, very pervasive online presence, and now they are huge. Like, um, although they're not playing Scotland with Dying Fetus this year, and I am body sick of that sort of thing. But still, that's another topic. But what I'm
yeah,
saying
that's
is,
that's another thing because another thing I do want to talk about, while not making this podcast 5 hours long, is is how you ended up getting started in promoting shows and booking your own shows and stuff like that. Because I've went to both the Coffin Mulch release show that you put on and the
uh,
Hell Ripper release show you put on. Both
mhm,
of them were incredible. How
yep.
did you get your start in doing that?
So the very first show I ever did was a birthday, no, not a birthday party. So it was a going away present for my friend Sinead, who not Sinead, excuse me. Let's try that again. It was a going away present for my friend Aisha, who played in a black metal band called Varzenigan. Now, I'm telling her to get her stuff put on Bandcamp. She never did, but if you look up Varzenigan on YouTube, you'll hopefully be able to find a couple of live recordings, and they were amazing. She's one of my favorite black metal vocalists that I've heard, and I'm desperate to kind of get more recordings of her at some point. Um, but so we put on so between me and her we put on like Risen Prophecy, Live Burial, Scum Pulse were meant to play it, but I think they pulled out. And then like my band at the time, Sheer Ignorance played it, her band played it, and it was just like a really lovely thing. And I didn't realize how easy it was to put together gigs. And then it was like, oh, you just hire a venue and then you promote the show and then that's it. Um, so when we started doing when Tyrannus started coming around, first off it was during the pandemic, so a lot of promoters just weren't active. But I have a bit of a beam up on it with the way how promoters in Scotland work. I'm friends with a couple of them, and I'm definitely not like going to be besmirching their names or anything, but things don't ever move fast enough for me. If I ask a question, if I'm looking to book something or anything, I want the answer right now. I don't want to wait 5 days. I don't want to hear about you need to balance books or find out what other stuff you've got going on. I want to know, can we play this show with this person right now, yes or no? So it's a lot easier for me to then just book a venue, put a bunch of bands on that I'm pals with, and then we just play the show. Um, and I would suggest, and I have suggested to a bunch of people, it's like if you desperately want to play a show, you don't need to be like begging promoters for support slots. Just go and put on shows. If you believe in your scene or if you believe in your mates, like you say you do, you'll put them on, and you'll put them on as your headliners, or you'll put them on as part of a super show. The coffin mulch thing was exactly that. Like I didn't like nobody was really none of the big promoters were really putting on coffin mulch anywhere, but I knew for a fact that that was the hardest working band in Scotland, and that album was going to kick so much ass, and I was right. 300 people about were at that show in stereo that night. That was so cool. And of course, on top of that, I'm trying to make like the other thing I've got an issue with when it comes to shows, particularly in the UK, is that a lot of promoters will just put on like five of the same bands basically, and I
Mm,
don't like that. Like I don't want to go to a black metal show and just hear Mayhem redone five times. I want to hear an atmospheric black metal band starting off, or I want to hear like a raw black metal thing at like towards the center, or maybe I want something that's got a little bit more levity to it, so it's not feeling so dense. The death metal scene is particularly awful for this, but it's just five brutal death metal bands. They're tuned so low you can't hear anything like past the snare drum, and the toilet, flush toilet vocals. So what I like doing is I like putting together. I ever like putting together bills that are either complementary, like the Goat Cult Gathering was. You've got Hellripper, Devastator, Insurgency, Us, and Night Fighter. So it's like a really good sort of like that's a really like neat progression of bands, but all have different sort of flavors of sort of the black thrash thing. Or like with the Coffin Mulch one, Al and I said that we wanted to have a really diverse lineup, so we opened it with a punk band and Seer, then us, and then Andraka, who are like a sort of an epic black metal thing, and then Coffin Mulch. So like I want variety, and I want it done my way, and I want it done now. So I'm not gonna wait for a promoter to kind of get round to my way of thinking because, ironically enough, promoters went to my shows, saw what I was doing, and then started booking those bands, and now I can't get access to them, which again, it's a big favor that I've managed to carry forward for my mates because now Hellripper, they're getting booked like they're like 2 years in advance now. Coffin Mulch are getting offered really good shows now, and that to me is that's worth it. So just because I can't get them again, that's cool. I've done my job. So now I need to find other bands that I can do that for again. Like if I can be sort of the bridge point to getting them more regular bookings, I'll do that. So you'll if you pay attention to what we're going to be announcing soon, you'll start seeing patterns of like who I believe in, who I'm wanting to see, and this goes for bands that I'm bringing up from down south as well. Like, 'cause I want, there's going to be bands that like I will constantly talk about, like Lewin. They're going to be fucking huge. Their next album is going to be massive when it comes to the UK stuff. Like, and it's already coming out in Church Road Records, and I love them. Like Nina and Shem are close to my heart, and I'm gonna be right there saying "I fucking told you so" when people are like, "Oh yeah, it's my favorite album of the year." It's like, yeah, I know it's gonna be your fucking favorite album of the year. Now go listen to all the rest of the stuff and buy all their shit and come see them when I book them, and then some promoter can then go and book them a year later.
yeah, I agree with every point you said, especially having variety in lineups, because I'm getting older. I'm having trouble staying awake because usually I'm working before a show because work is terrible and I unfortunately have to be an adult so I can go to these.
Here, here.
But I'm finding if it's five, like 3 to 5 bands that sound basically the same, I mean, it's still good, don't get me wrong, because I love live music, but I love it when there is a bit of spiciness to a
Mhm.
lineup. And what you said kind of gives me a parallel to a video I watched from Dean Lamb of Archspire and how they've put together their tours, and they do the same thing. While they might be headlining, they have support acts that take an element of their music without a lot of crossover, while still having some flavors of it. Like the video I watched of them putting together their headline tour in Europe last year, it was Archspire headlining. You had Benighted, which is like a brutal grindy band, super fast and brutal. Entheos, which is still very technical, but a little bit more organic and has some soundscapey, atmospheric stuff in it. And Psychroptic, which has a more thrashy vibe to it. So it's all these elements that the headliner has, but still different enough so that when Archspire take the stage, your ears aren't dead. and you just want to go home, which is
Hmm.
usually how I feel, especially when you're getting these bills are getting bigger and all these bands are great, but when the headliner comes on, it's like I'm about to fucking fall asleep here, you know?
Yeah, and like you need to have momentum in your booking
Hmm.
choices. Like, I don't know if you're a wrestling fan or not, but I kind of structure mine like wrestling shows. So you have a hot opener, or sometimes you maybe have a quieter opener to kind of ease people in. When I booked a London show for us a couple of years ago, we had Alcia start the show. Now he's like an experimental one man drone type of thing. It's just literally just him with his guitar, no drums or anything, like none at all, like not even playing for the PA. It's just him making sort of soundscapes with his guitar, and then he will do his vocals without a mic. He'll just scream so fucking loud that you can hear him over that. But the overall volume is still quite low compared to like a traditional band. But that helped kind of ease the audience into the night. And then we had Sewer Trench, or like a really punky death metal band who really lit the crowd up. Then after them was Bal from Sheffield, who kind of they brought in sort of that introspective black metal that we pull a little from, but we're not quite there. But that was like a really sort of it's quite an emotional feeling set actually the way they played. And then we headlined, and like we're a very sort of mixed bag when it comes to like Blackened. I make the meme of or I try to make a meme of like every time I describe us with the tags, it's always in a different order. So black thrash and death metal, or thrashy black death, or death thrash and black metal, like all that. But yeah, like that. Then we topped it off with a headline set, and that to me is like that in terms of like momentum and how the crowd was feeling. That was really good. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely agree. It needs to, you don't want too many lulls, especially when if it's taking, 15, 20 minutes for the next band to come on, and then you get one that's like quite slow or maybe takes a little bit to get into. Like prime example, I was at the Big Iron gig last night. They had them headlining, was Salt River Shakedown as the opener, and then Blue Nicotine, then Big Iron. Salt River Shakedown, it took a little bit for me to get into just because there wasn't a lot of like get up and go. They were just kind of standing there and playing their instruments. And not that, I mean, you obviously want to play your instruments, but if I go and see a live show, I want to watch something. I want to see something. If I
Hmm.
just wanted to hear live music, why would I, take a taxi up to High Station because I don't live in Glasgow, I live in Falkirk. The nearest train station is about 20, 15-ish minutes, like drive away. And then it's about 20 minutes to half an hour train, maybe 40 minutes into Glasgow and then getting to the venue. Why would I spend all that time and money if I just want to see people standing there going, "No, no, 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 no." It's like,
Yeah,
Jesus
like
Christ, fucking do something, you
I
know?
I think a lot of bands really need to be aware of the vibe basically of what they're doing. Like if you're putting together like I had this recently where I booked Sunken from Denmark
Mhm.
and um on retrospect, that was a bad move by me. Like, they're not like no offense to them. They're great musicians, really nice people, and the music they make is really good. That shit cannot headline a show in Glasgow. That shit cannot. It's atmospheric black metal, like that you're kind of meant to like you're meant to be sitting down in a corner, really thinking about your life choices when you listen to that music. And as a result, the band before them that I'd booked, Volnir, who one of my favorite black metal bands ever. Volnir, so good. They stole the show entirely because they had this an amazing energy, and it really pulled people in. It's not necessarily like a punk type of vibe, but just like there's just this absolute chaos that comes from them that you're absolutely drawn to. Like I was doing Doors, and I had to steal like 10 minutes just to experience their set because it was so good. So when you're playing a show, um, realistically, as a band, you should really be thinking about like how is your imagery and your stage setup and all that, how is that contributing to the show? Because I get that like it's a lot of work to think about, but like um the best example I can come up with that sort of thing is James from Hellripper. Um, if you listen to Hellripper albums, the back end of the B side tends to have a couple of like really like epic black metal numbers, like Mister Steerworm on the Warlock's Grim album, or the Hanging Tree from the album before that. These are really complex, like intricately written black metal songs. And I've asked him, like, have you ever thought about playing those? And the answer is probably not, because it doesn't contribute to like the live feel that we're trying to do. And you've been to a Hellripper show, you know what that is. It's basically like a manic party,
Hmm.
and like an 8 minute black metal song would take away from that. So I kind of feel like if now maybe it's my fault as a promoter for not structure and support around Sunken um that would have contributed better to the lineup. But at the same time, I don't want four bands boring people to death. Never mind one. So
Yeah. But you're not going to know whether these things are a good idea or not until they're actually happening. There is only so much, I suppose, prep work you can put into even knowing the scene yourself and going to shows, how crowds react and that kind of thing, as well as like crowd numbers and all that. There's only so much of that you can do before the actual show itself.
mhm.
And then it's really when the band takes a stage and you see them perform and then audience reaction, that's when you know maybe they shouldn't be the band before the headliner or the opener or whatever. You
Yeah,
don't know until you do the thing.
yeah. I there's a lot of things I wish I could have done differently about that show. Although I was very happy that we managed to help out Grotesqueries for that show, because they end up having an issue. They didn't have a date that day, but we're in Glasgow, so we just put them on that, and like gave them a place to play and impress. And like again, like a lot of what I do really is just to help people out. That's all I. If I can manage that, I'm happy.
Yeah, and that's the best way to do it, and that's something that I really love about this scene as a whole. Everybody's going to each other's shows. Everybody's buying each other's albums, merch, whatever it might be. Everybody's supporting each other, and it really just feels like a giant party. It's like that Riffs and Raps show that Chloe and Noah put on about a month or so ago. That's the
I feel the
vibe I
same.
get at any show where there's Scottish metal bands playing. It's just a big party. We're all pals, just having fun. And
I'm
that's why I love it so much.
so proud of them for putting that together. That is like you talk about guts and talking about believing in your friends and believing in your scene. That they exemplify it better than a lot of the older guys. If I'm being honest, like I'm actually quite chuffed to see that, because for me it felt like there was a long time that I was the youngest person like in the scene,
Mhm.
and that felt weird. Like I shouldn't have been like 25 and feeling like the youngest person in the room. So to see that there's a proper youth movement in the Glasgow scene again, that is so good.
It
I
is.
thought we were a dying breed. I thought you were probably going to be the last one. So
Yeah, and it's seeing all these people forming bands themselves, like Chloe's and Doppelganger, and then you've got Jaundice as well, who, oh my God, I cannot speak enough praise about them. Their
yeah,
first show ever was Dead of Winterfest this year. Their first ever live show is a near sold out Ivory Blacks, and they're the first band on a 11 band bill, and they
at like 12
fucking
o'clock in the afternoon or something, right?
yeah, at like just lunchtime. They're playing at lunchtime in Ivory Blacks. It's nearly sold out. It's the first of an 11 band bill, and they stole the fucking show. And I've seen them a few times since then. I was with them at that Fetal Juice and Rancid Cadaver show. They were incredible then, and they're just getting better and better. And I really cannot wait to hear from them. They're a
Yeah.
band that I'm really hoping does a lot of things and a lot of good things. I really hope that they keep it going, and they're going to be lifers. I can already tell.
Half of everything is luck and the other half is hard work. And
Yep.
Jaundice have at least got the second half right.
Yep, they've
So
got the hard work. They've got the hard work, and I'll be cheering them on all the way for sure.
not to be pessimistic, but have there been any bands that you've seen and thought they've got a ton of promise and then things just don't work out?
Hmm. The
I can
only
give you one
times that
example out of mine, but I'd like to hear from you first.
yeah. I can't say I've ever seen that from any like local bands, because pretty much every local
Doesn't
band
have to
I've
be local
seen,
bands. No, no, I'm not just local bands. But I'm talking about like maybe any bands that have come up from down south for that you feel like, oh, they're amazing, and then nothing really
yeah,
pans out.
I'd say no, I feel bad like naming names and stuff, but I'm into a lot of the kind of hardcore and beatdown and stuff like that. And England is really good for that. And there's been a
England's
few
fantastic
where
for hardcore. Oh my god, the scene right now is it's insane.
it
Like
is. There's so many bands. A lot of them are really good, but you do get your kind of not terrible, but there's just others that do it better, is what I've noticed.
no, that's not what I'm meaning. Right, I'm gonna give you my example, and
Yeah,
if you
okay.
have to have one, that's cool. There is a band that I think everyone should be going to check out, especially their second album, Diamanthian. They were from
Hmm.
Liverpool, so they are like I guess kind of like a prototypical Black Death band, like in the modern sense.
Hmm.
But it was like death metal with all this sort of black metal kind of like atmosphere and things like that. Their second album, Arcana Doctrina, is so dark sounding. It's so like it's got like this cavernous feel, and they also there's a Finnish death metal band from the 90s I can never remember the name of, but they did a cover of that band as well, and it's just like all the feeling was totally correct, but in my opinion they were too ahead of their time. Basically, like the like the appetite for that kind of death metal just wasn't there, but it exploded around sort of like 2018 19 when suddenly all these like death metal bands started playing black metal riffs and having bigger sounding production, like Grave Miasma, um, Vitriol would probably would fit under that category as well. But yeah, like folks should check out Diamanthium because it's a big shame that things didn't work out for them because they played Damnation a couple of times, they toured the UK a couple of times, and they were all fantastic musicians and great songwriters, but it just didn't work out. And I've always been gutted by because they even had like Jeff Walker was doing their logo, so it's like there was like some support from like the old guard for them for that, but it just didn't work out. And I'll always be bloody gutted and be like and telling people if you want a what could have been, go and check out Diamanthian.
Yeah. In terms of, I suppose, that definition, there isn't anybody that comes to mind at the moment. I'm sure there is, but nobody comes to mind for me. Everybody I've listened to, I love. I don't listen to something if I don't love it. Part
Hmm.
of that is because, well, I've mentioned it on the podcast a few times, but I'm actually on the autistic spectrum, where it's a very narrow pool of interests,
Hmm.
but the pool is as deep as the ocean. So while it's not a lot of things, what I love, I fucking love.
Yeah,
And I know
pure
fucking
passion.
everything
Yeah.
about it. And that's why you see me at all these gigs because I genuinely love the music. I genuinely love all the guys in it. It's yeah, there's not many more ways I can
And
say it without using the word love. Here's a fun
no,
drinking game. In the last 10 seconds, every time I've said the word love, take a shot.
this podcast is not legally responsible for your health and well-being as a result of said instructions. Uh,
Exactly, exactly. But
well, from going to what you're saying though, like realistically, scenes are not built unless they have people like yourself doing that, like showing that kind of like. uh, Not to get too personal, but I'm not going to get personal. But I have been through some things recently that have kind of proven to me like what the power of love actually is, and it's not
mhm.
just about romantic love, but like when people have a love for something or for a cause or for whatever, like when people love something, things happen, things get built, and it's really amazing to see. Sometimes you don't notice it until you see the result of it, but yeah, like there's a lot of love that goes into the things that we enjoy, um and I think like that to me is probably if you're ever wanting to beat the pessimism or nihilism that is very pervasive online, that would be the best way to think about things. Is that like a lot of things are made just with love, and that's amazing.
It is, and it's a good thing I'm wearing these, or that almost brought a wee tear to my eye, but it's true.
I'll get you yet, mate. I'll get you yet.
The first guest that makes me cry on a podcast where you can actually see the tear like
Yeah.
streaming down there, I'll give 20 quid. You heard it here. It's on the internet, which means it's absolutely true. If somebody on this podcast manages to make me cry and you can see it behind the pit vipers or like trailing out from underneath the pit vipers, if I see you in real life, I owe you 20 quid.
Caveat: it's not to be a sad story though. It has to be something that's like
Yeah,
beautiful and
it's got to
positive.
be hopeful and wholesome.
Don't
You can't just make me sad because I'm sad anyway.
yeah, don't come on here talking about like dying kittens or something.
Yeah. Well, I
Oh,
mean, I will admit I'm more of a dog guy. I've got two mini Jack Russells who are my little goblin children. I like cats, but just dogs. Dogs, way better.
I mean, I like either, but at the moment I don't have the time. It's the only thing about being in a band is, see, if you're trying to be busy as a band, you got time for nothing. You're lucky if you've got
Yeah.
time for your full time job and being able to hit the gym after.
Hmm.
So hopefully we'll be getting busy properly next year again.
Yeah.
I would say busy properly, but I say, well, wait, we toured at the start of the year. We have done a decent bit this year.
Yeah, but
Um,
as in, like, the ball will get rolling again because obviously Tyrannus is slowly working in new material.
Album number
And
two is pretty much written.
mhm,
I've got demos for every song that we're going to be recording. I've got a drummer who's an amazing drummer for recording this, um and yeah, like I've got a like it's quite interesting doing like a lot of people will be gearing towards their first album and it's all they can think about, and they're thinking about like how's the track listing going to go, how's it going to sound, what's the album cover going to be, da 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 da. And for me, was there's still that with album number two, but you're so much more sure of it. Like
mhm,
it is really interesting. Like the music was all I could focus on with Unslayable, but for this next one, it's like I've already got it in the bag. In that regard, it's now
mhm.
okay. How do I make this land properly? How do I make it have the most impact, so that people can then maybe not only listen to the second album, which is going to blow the first one out the water, like in some aspects, but is going to give people reason to go back to the first one to get more context for what the second album's doing. You know?
Yeah. I suppose in a way that extra confidence is because you've went through the process of making Unslayable. You know what works, what doesn't, what things you want to do, what things you don't want to do, and how you're going to, suppose, take that album and put it out there, not only in terms of promotion, but also live activities and everything that goes into that. Like even stuff like artwork for like banners and stuff like that. You know
Mm-hmm.
what's going to look good, what's going to pop, just all that kind of thing. You know what works, you know what doesn't, and that's why I definitely know that New Tyrannus, it's not going to fall victim to that sophomore slump that you see a lot of bands go through. Where the first album's great, and the second one's like, nah, it's not going to happen. I know it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I think the say like one of the sayings that I've heard from a lot of bands is like you've got your entire life to write your first album, and you've only got 2 or 3 years to get the one afterwards done. And I think that's maybe where a lot of that sort of failure kind of comes from,
Hmm.
or it's. I think the biggest one for me when it comes to that sort of like sophomore slump is Wasp. I
Yeah,
love Wasp, love them to absolute death, but you listen to that first album and it is absolute fire. Like that is gunning all cylinders. Nothing's getting left on the table. It's like it is just so good. And then the second one almost sounds like a completely different band, but with the same singer. And it's like, where's like, where's the beef? Where's the fire? Where like, don't get me wrong, there's still some good songs on it, but it's
yeah,
definitely the one I like. Like when I'm listening to Wasp, I will skip that and go to like Inside the Electric Circus, because at least that's got like some it's got some very strange energy to it, but it's still got something that like the Last Command doesn't. So
yeah. No, I definitely agree, and that brings to mind two quotes just before we wrap things up here. Two quotes that I've heard throughout music is one's from Clown talking about point five, the grade chapter, where it's like you have your whole life to make your first record. What you learn on your fifth, it's you've got your rest of your life to do it again. And also Alex Taine, the vocalist of the band Black Tongue, that started off as a down tempo deathcore band, the tough guy. Oh, I'm sad, but I'm also going to punch you in the face. But
Hmm.
then their second full length, Nadir, it metamorphosized into like blackened death doom with atmospheric parts, bone crushing breakdowns, but it's not just breakdowns. And they were taught, one of the quotes that he said was, if you're recording an album and it's not your own favorite album, you fucked up.
Yep, fully agreed. I don't mind. Like I know there's kind of like a taboo thing with band guys, where like, do you listen to your own material back? And the answer a lot of time is no. That's weird. Why would I do that?
Yeah.
But to me, it's like if you're not listening back to your own material, you're not learning from your own mistakes.
Hmm.
Like I'm I listen back to Unslayable maybe once a month or so, and I'm still very proud of that. There are definitely things on there where I'm like, okay, that could have been done a little better, or we could
Hmm.
have done that a little differently, but overall, I wouldn't change it. But what I will do is learn from it.
And it just means that album two is going to be even better. And then the challenge comes after that with album three down the line, and so on and so forth, where you keep putting the bar so high, it's like Icarus flying close to the sun. How far can you go before eventually your wings just burn off and all that kind of thing?
The
But
thing I hope to do with Tyrannus is that I don't want to become like one of these bands that just puts albums out for the sake of it. If I
mm,
like, I need like I would like to go out like Bolt Thrower did, where they were like, we can't top our last album, so we're not gonna. That's it, folks. Show's over.
yeah, and that's the way to do it instead of just making more and more boring material and just letting it fizzle out. You want to go out, here's the album, boom, it's fantastic, everyone loves it, and then that's it. See you later.
Yeah, get out of it what you want, and that's it. Don't push it from there.
Yeah. And still have your heart in it. Still remember why you're doing it. Remember that you love it and it's not just a chore. And that's why
Absolutely.
I don't think I could do this full time. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think it'd be great, but I think at some point it just becomes work. And this podcast has been very much an escape from work and just how terrible real life can be, as well as, getting to talk to people that like I've wanted to talk to. Like, say you've just played a set and it's like you're talking to your friends and stuff. And my head's just going, say hi. No, he's talking to his friends and stuff. Leave him alone. Go say hi. It's just that kind of thing, which is part again of like autistic people. It's like it's like you're being held back in a way. It's like people without it could just go up and say hi, whereas me, I'm like, oh, I see you talking to your friends or talking to somebody else. I don't want to just like butt in and stuff like that. That would be inconsiderate.
Well, there is an open invite to yourself and anyone else that listening that if you do want to get my attention, just do please say hi because otherwise I'll feel bad. So
Yeah.
now you have to just
Yeah, it's
just
true. Next show, if I don't do it, you're gonna be like, you there, won't say hi, and I'm gonna be like,
it's
I'm
like
scared now.
it's like you're making me feel bad. You need to sort this out, John.
I know. Callum, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on here. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Everybody, Tyrannus album 2 in the works. I'm sure they've got lots of stuff that they're going to announce over the next few months or so. Tyrannus aren't going away. They're going to come back and they're going to kick you square in the nuts. Like, comment, subscribe. If you're watching this, you've been in the internet long enough to know what you're doing. I shouldn't have to tell you. But thank you very much, everybody, for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.
Cheers, folks.